Donald Trump is the most unfit president in American history. He is the most corrupt and the most incompetent. And everything that is happening could have and should have been predicted by the people who follow it most closely. Let's return to November of 2024 when the four-year nightmare began with Donald Trump's second election over 12 years in 3 presidential contests. Let's go back to the early days of DOGE and Musk, the chaos of those first months, to ICE, the corruption, the Bitcoin, the Politburo that used to be a Congress, the wars, the threats, RFK, and all of the accruing madness. It was always going to bust up because all of it is built on a foundation of lies and insanity. The corrupt American media has stoked this in partnership with Donald Trump for more than a decade, and the bill is coming due. But let nobody ever say that nobody could see it coming, because that's the biggest lie of all. We could see it coming. We knew exactly what it was, and we chose it anyway. But thankfully, it's going down. And that was always the destiny of MAGA. It's not something that's built to survive. It's built to destroy, to burn. But the fire, it will be extinguished. This is the warning. 719 days from now, we get a vote, a referendum on the first 2 years of the Trump presidency and on the corrupt MAGA rubber stamp Congress. Donald Trump is off to a fast start assembling his cabinet. The Democratic Party is in no real functional position to oppose all of them, particularly given the resounding victory Donald Trump achieved in the election last week. Yet, the American people and the Trump opposition are on the edge of an extremely important moral victory. When all of the votes are cast, it seems that Donald Trump will not have majority support of the American people. He will be a plurality winner, and the scale and the size of his victory will be less than what George W. Bush achieved when he beat John Kerry by 141,000 votes in the state of Ohio, becoming the nation's 43rd president. We should talk about the man that he picked to be Secretary of Defense, because when he was picked, Donald Rumsfeld, who had at one point been the youngest secretary in the nation's history, was celebrated. He went on to become the worst defense secretary in American history by a lot. He was the principal architect of 2 losing wars that killed 1 million human beings, 5,000 plus of them Americans, wounded tens of thousands, incited a suicide epidemic, and cost $4 trillion. The arrogant Rumsfeld sent the 1st Cavalry Division to Baghdad without its armor. He mandated that the United States Army fight a war of ideology on the basis not of doctrine, not on training, but the whims of Rumsfeld's ego. And it was a disaster. And now Donald Trump has raised the ante. He has appointed somebody to become the Secretary of Defense, a National Guard officer and Princeton graduate with no real-world experience outside of Fox News, to become the leader of the $1 trillion a year Department of Defense, which cannot pass an audit. Pete Hegseth will be taking the place of Lloyd Austin, a competent, decent, qualified man. And Pete Hegseth, a man who believes women should not be in combat, a tinkerer with the codes and customs of the military, trying to impose the MAGA worldview on its system of honor, including his demand that war criminals be pardoned by Donald Trump, who violated the most important codes and mores of the military. When the Navy SEALs wanted to take Eddie Gallagher's trident away, Pete Hegseth was there to politicize it, to foxify it. And now he'll be the Secretary of Defense, unless Democrats can stop him. And he should be target numero uno for the confirmation hearings. Democrats should demand immediately the full release of his service files, all of them. What were his fitness reports? The simple fact is, I'm not somebody who believes that the personal lives of leaders should be a disqualification. But the simple truth is, Pete Hegseth is on his third marriage, and 2 times he's had affairs with coworkers. Adultery is a crime in the military. Pete Hegseth is a clown who has no business leading the American armed forces. Democrats should fight this all the way home. The American people love their dogs, me included. There is no MAGA whatever who is quite like Corey Lewandowski's mistress, Governor Kristi Noem of South Dakota, who is to be the Secretary of Homeland Security. Because in the way that Trump is a narcissist, it appears that Kristi Noem is a sadist. In her own words, with her own confessions. She's a small state governor who is not competent to the task of running America's bloated Homeland Security behemoth. Kristi Noem will do whatever Trump tells her to do. Will she take away people's TSA pre because she doesn't like their politics or their Nexus cards or global traveler cards? Who gets to be on the no-fly list? Democratic committeemen with Trump's reign of revenge set to fall upon the country? Kristi Noem is going to have a hard time answering tough questions in a confirmation, and Democrats should go after her hard with discipline and focus. Fact of the matter is, the Democratic Party right now is not in fighting shape, but it has to, like a wolf pack or a lion pack, go after the weakest members of the Trump herd. That's how zebras get eaten. And the slowest zebras in Trump's MAGA pack are Pete Hegseth and Kristi Noem. They're extremely vulnerable, and they have been nominated for some of the most important offices in the country. Now, the grifting former governor of Arkansas and Fox News host, Mike Huckabee, has been nominated to be ambassador to Israel. That's a joke, not unsuspected, but Democrats should do everything they can to embarrass this man because he deserves it during his confirmation hearings. He's a political extremist who will go to the Middle East, to a place of tension in a time of war, and say manifestly stupid things that will inflame the situation and get people killed. Now, most people don't remember how corrupt Mike Huckabee was when he was the governor of Arkansas. I shit you not, but he released the equivalent as governor of a wedding registry where you could send the governor gifts for the governor's mansion. And of course, Huckabee pocketed all of them. We never really got to talk about it on the McCain campaign because it wasn't our political interest. But one of my long lost regrets is that we never really got to mix it up with Mike Huckabee and call this clown and fool and liar and grifter out for what he is. One of the worst Americans out there, truly. And so the confirmation process for Mike Huckabee should not be courteous. It should be brutal. Every one of the Trump grifters who comes before the Congress should get it with both barrels, because that's the job of the Congress, not to rubber stamp Trump's most obnoxious picks. And by the way, let's talk about the co-presidents, the conspiracy theorists Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. Together, they will be reinventing government, leading the Government Efficiency Office. As Senator Elizabeth Warren points out, why not? An efficiency office, the job of one person, will now be run by 2 giant egos. The South African, Elon Musk, and Vivek Ramaswamy, the 9/11 conspiracy theorist. What could go wrong? They probably aren't up to the task, and that's okay. Because sooner or later, no matter how inept the Democratic Party is, Donald Trump and his team of nutjobs will be undone by the combination of their incompetence, their arrogance, and their extremism. They will trip themselves up. Though it would be good if a decent opposition formed as quickly as possible. That was tough, that was focused, and was brutally honest. And what that means is It's time to discard all of the grifters and all of their groups that raise money from senior citizens promising to be centurions of democracy while pocketing 98 cents on the dollar. It ought to be illegal, and it probably is. But here's the thing. A decent opposition is what is required to beat Donald Trump. A mirror image opposition will lose to him every time because the small-time grifters of the resistance movement are nothing compared to the big-time grifters, the big sharks of the MAGA movement. A decent opposition, steeled by conviction and fortitude, will have a great victory 719 days from now if it is built on a foundation of principle and conviction in fierceness in defense of the Constitution from the attack and assault that it's about to sustain. An election was lost that shouldn't have been. But everybody who is part of the movement that stands opposed to Donald Trump as a matter of conviction and conscience can be certain that they are on the right side of history, because they are on the side that believes all Americans are created equal, that they have inalienable rights, that we should not bow to a king or a Caesar, and that nobody has the right to persecute any American for speaking out with regard to what they think, what they believe, or the faith they have. To threaten to do so is un-American. And though it was given a mandate by the American people are fickle. And soon, Donald Trump will have full control of the entire government. And the American people will get to see what MAGA looks like in 2024. They're going to get to see incredible brutality. They're going to get to see inhumanity. They're going to get to see a repudiation of our exceptionalism as a country, our excellence as a people. It's going to be a shameful period, sad one. It requires in this moment tough and focused people who can tell the truth, who can rally people to a cause and communicate something better than what Donald Trump is capable of. If that is done, then victory is not so far off. If it is not, then terrible things will happen and the situation will worsen. It's time to start talking about and to start thinking about better. And the first step to that means letting go of the past. And that past includes a lot of failed Democratic leaders whose incompetence purchased us 4 years of Donald Trump. Every one of you who sees this should be outraged over it. But that outrage cannot deter you from participation and the work of fighting back and taking back one house of government and then a second. This is the work at hand. The country's future depends on it. Quitting, tuning out, disengaging at the moment of maximum danger when MAGA has maximum power is simply not an option. It will make everything worse and all of us less safe. A great contest is underway and its end result is unclear. Donald Trump has won 2 elections and lost one. The midterm elections between did not break his way. He will not have achieved a majority and the country is closely divided. The next rounds in this fight are undecided. Let's get back to work. There's much to be done. 60 years ago today, in a very different speech, on a colder day, standing outside, the 43-year-old president of the United States, John Kennedy, said this.
So, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
There are millions of Americans who are stunned right now. They are terrified, heartbroken, angry, saddened. And today, the 47th President of the United States uttered the most chilling words that have ever been spoken by an American leader. I was saved by God to make America great. It is delusional. It is messianic. These are the words of a Jim Jones wannabe, not an American president. This speech was a threat to the American way of life. Dressed up as a commitment to law and order, Donald Trump has promised to use a law written in 1798 to deploy the American military into America's cities to wage war. He talked about peace in his speech, but it was a war speech. Make no doubt about that. Donald Trump talked about manifest destiny deliberately. He talked about an expansionist America. What country is it, Donald, that you propose to invade beyond Panama? And that was the point of the speech in the end. There were words, of course, and there were promises and commitments, none of which will come true. What will be remembered from this speech are the faces of the people smiling in celebration. The owner of the Washington Post, next to the Princess Sanchez. Elon Musk, the CEO of Google, and Mark Zuckerberg, the titans of America's technological power, the leaders of the most powerful companies in the history of the world, all gathered together, not to celebrate democracy, not because they share a commitment to justice or to the American people, but out of fear and entitlement and opportunity, because they realize what is gathered in that room are their fellow takers. It is the greatest gathering of takers the American people have ever seen. And a season is upon us, unlike any that has ever been before in the United States. The delusional Trump says he comes to office facing challenges that are greater than what Lincoln faced, or Washington, or John Adams, or Franklin Roosevelt. It is absurd. Who will be the first American to die, to be buried under an American flag for Trump's invasion of Panama? Or, per usual, is it just bluster or bullshit? It might be a good time to reread the book, The Guns of August, because history teaches us that there is an awful momentum to the type of words that Donald Trump spoke today. He talked about William McKinley. William McKinley was prodded by unethical journalists into waging war in Cuba, manufactured by William Randolph Hearst. Back in the day, fake news was called yellow journalism. It's alive and well today. It will be hard to know what is true and know what is not, but that has always been the case. You must use your judgment, your eyes, and your ears to appreciate the profound disconnect between a man that claims God's grace, yet who desecrates his faith. What the American people saw today was a disaster at the very first instance of its unfolding. What Donald Trump is promising is not democracy, it's feudalism. He is king, surrounded by his lords, and all the rest of us are to be their serfs. And then they will tell us that each of us is a hero in the service of a great cause to a great nation that benefits just a few. It's cynical, it won't work, it's obvious, and it will fall apart. But it cannot fall apart until and unless there is an opposition with a conviction and an instinct to celebrate this country and argue for better by reaching for our values and communicating there's a better way. It will become obvious that this is not a golden age descending upon us, but a season of unrequited corruption, a time of chaos, mayhem, vanity, and venality. Nobody with any common sense will think, after hearing this, anything other than, my God, what have we done? But we have done it. Trump's mandate is thin. He won election with 49.9% of the vote, and even in an inaugural address, his ego is so brittle, so thin, he can't stop talking about it, can't stop grasping for himself. And so Donald Trump has laid a trap in this inaugural speech. The American people don't want the interest group politics, and they don't want to live in the woketopia. They have rejected it. And Donald Trump has chummed the waters. He has done what he has needed to do to make sure that the most extreme element of the Democratic Party is the first to the line in opposition, so that they are opposing the most popular parts of his agenda while he gets a free hand to carry out the most unpopular ones. The game never gets old, at least for Trump, who constantly wins at this. You can't fix stupid, as they say, and I worry about that. This is a moment that will require a fierceness in the opposition. It requires political leaders in this country to go out and to say to the Canadian people, to the Danish people, to the Panamanian people, to our allies all over the world, we will not let American power be turned against you in the name of Donald Trump's sick and twisted vision about our expansion. The United States of America is not Putin's Russia. We will not seek conquest. The American people will not tolerate it. And that so many stood and cheered under the Capitol Rotunda that was invaded and desecrated by the mob Trump sent there just 4 short years ago is a sign of the national sickness that Trump's inaugural address perfectly represented. And yet, there is a cure. It is the idea that we are better than this. We are. Soon, Donald Trump will set about doing the things that he has said he will do. He makes it all seem easy with his breezy confidences and his assertions, but all of them are based on a delusion that when something is dropped, it rises as opposed to falling. And what Donald Trump is dropping are our values, our history, our legacy. He told a story about America today that was mythological. It's nice to hear myth. Sometimes it can even be inspiring. But through the myth, it's important to hear the threat. And that threat was loud and clear today. Millions of Americans won't be cheering for this for very long. Mark my words on that. The future, we don't know what it will bring, but I'm going to make a prediction. 4 years from today, should this speech be played back, people will either laugh out loud or cry out loud. And that will all depend on how deep the pit is that we find ourselves in after the tragedy that's coming fully arrives. Let's not forget the lesson. It has been a most painful one on a sad day. The Trump War Cabinet, while simultaneously admitting that they sent the nation's classified war plans during a military strike to a reporter at the Atlantic magazine, and that the director of national intelligence, the national security advisor, the secretary of defense, the secretary of state, the CIA director, and the White House chief of staff were all on the text exchanges, and not one person had the wherewithal to notice that one of the names was unlike the other. One of them wasn't a MAGA stooge. One of them was one of the most respected journalists in the United States and one of the toughest editors, a man of conviction. So when he printed the astonishing story that made clear that Pete Hegseth, on a system that was absolutely 100% seen, read, penetrated by Russians, by the Chinese, by a dozen other intelligence services at least, that the American planes were coming, putting the war plans down so that every American pilot could have been blown out of the sky. It's the highest level failure of operational security ever. Remember, Geraldo Rivera was thrown out of Iraq for drawing a map about American troop positions in the sand. This is so much worse. In the end, the incompetence of the National Security Advisor and the Defense Secretary, whose fault is it? It's the journalists. It's a conspiracy against Donald Trump, you see. One more hate crime against the Donald. You see, when Pete Hegseth, the drunk, the accused rapist, gave away on an open channel that was seen by the Chinese and the Russians and a dozen other intelligence services, the times, the flight plans, the weapons packages, the sorties, all of the details of the attack, it was the media's fault. Now, if those pilots had been shot down and killed, no doubt Susie Wiles and the whole gang would have been on television saying they died a glorious death for Donald Trump. No doubt they would have said they were killed by the American media. The entire focus of American military training at an educational level,
at West Point, at Annapolis, Marine Corps officer candidate school, at the infantry officer school, across the depth and breadth of the U.S. military. They teach accountability. They teach responsibility. They teach the difference between the two. The idea that Pete Hegseth and none of these people will embrace is responsibility. The idea that they're responsible for their conduct, for their actions. There is no word to describe the disgrace of these people. There is no word to measure their incompetence. This would have ended the career of a U.S. Navy captain commanding a vessel. It would have ended the career of an Air Force general commanding an air wing. It would have ended the career of a Marine general or an Army general commanding a division. But if you're in politics and you're part of MAGA, you can do as you please. There is no price. It's always somebody else's fault. And so the whole country has seen the cavalier attitude, the disrespect these thugs have for the sons and the daughters of America's moms and dads who they ordered into harm's way. They are nothing, widgets. Let's pray for victory by J.D. Vance. The explosions, the emojis, these are petulant children and immoral ones. The Trump administration is a version of Lord of the Flies. Everywhere we look, we see unraveling now. The Social Security system is flashing red. It's nearing a collapse where, for the first time in history, benefits will be interrupted. Public lands are under attack. The summer vacation season starts for millions of American families who enjoy the outdoors, who want to camp, enjoy our majestic national cathedrals, Yosemite, Yellowstone, the Tetons. All around us, the signs are clear. Those gang members from Venezuela, turns out, well, there was a barber or two in the mix. Turns out there's a reason we have due process. Freedom of speech is under assault. Freedom of dissent is under assault. And everywhere, in America's most privileged places, in its law firm boardrooms, in its corporate boardrooms, in the banks, in the Hollywood studios, there is a cloud, a chill descending of intimidation. People are afraid. Donald Trump has succeeded in rewriting the playbook. In America, the right to criticize the president isn't a given anymore. It comes with a cost, a consequence. There'll be payback. You'll feel the rage and anger of Trump's online mobs, his thugs. Did you know he's talking about giving cash checks to the January 6th criminals who he pardoned, your tax dollars? Did you know that children got notices this week that the clinical trials they were in for cancer, they've been suspended? Food aid around the world, suspended. AIDS treatment, suspended. The men and women who would track a lost nuclear weapon or a rogue one, fired, just like the air traffic controllers. Elon Musk, he's an entrepreneur who the sick MAGA Congress has made an authority on all things in America. How did we make it before Elon was born in South Africa? The type of genius that the country has relied on was the genius of John Adams and Alexander Hamilton, of Thomas Jefferson and George Washington. A lot of people like to look at the faults of these men, and each had many, like all people do. But they had a resplendent genius for human affairs, for the philosophy of how men and women should govern themselves, what the meaning of life should be, how the order of society should be constructed. And that genius has endured for 250 years and made America the most powerful and prosperous nation in the history of the world. And now, by the wave of the Trumpian finger and the devotion and zeal of sycophants and ignorant clowns, they want to burn it all down. Hail Trump, hail Musk. They have to do it because of they, always they. Someone is always doing something to the MAGA folks, but there's always a lack of specifics, isn't there? Well, the most sublime experiment in human history is the United States of America. our government of the people, by the people, for the people, that Abraham Lincoln said shall not perish from this earth at a time of deep crisis. His unwavering faith kept it together. And the threat of that hour far exceeded the threat of Trump and his vile clowns, though Trump and his vile clowns sit in a seat that no one before today could have ever imagined ever could have happened in America. But it did. And as predicted, when it did come to America, fascism was wrapped in a flag and carrying a cross. And so we see Trump's little Eichmanns, these little fascists with their small crosses on their chests. We see the immorality wrapped in the flag. We see the incompetence asserted as the cry of a jingo. Pete Hegseth is exactly the clown and the fool I said he was, that I told you he was. And he almost just got a lot of Navy and Marine Corps pilots killed, along with Marco Rubio and Tulsi Gabbard and John Radcliffe and Susie Wiles. Pete Hegseth wants to change the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. 350 million people in this country. Somehow, Donald Trump, the great genius, the great deal maker, picked the 10 stupid sons of bitches in the whole land to be in charge of war.
And yesterday, shortly after 4 p.m., when the stock markets closed, Donald Trump ambled out to the presidential podium and declared trade war, America against the world. He said, "This is the key to our country being great again." The Republican members of Congress cheered, and his sycophants went on TV to celebrate. This is a decisive moment. Millions of Americans will be hurt. But politically, though it will not seem like it today, Donald Trump has destroyed his MAGA movement. It will be remembered as an instrument of economic recession, if not depression, of lost dreams and hopes, as a crusher of prosperity. And there is no country that will pay a higher price than the United States. And there is no group of voters, none, that will be more impacted, that will be more hurt by this than Donald Trump's own voters.
We have to take care of our people, and we're going to take care of our people first, and I'm sorry to say that.
Every single thing that an American purchases will go up. In less than 100 days, Donald Trump has set the following in motion. Wages will go down. Prices will go up. Unemployment will rise as prices go up and wages go down. And because of the uncertainty, there will be no hiring. Everything will freeze.
And today we're standing up for the American worker, and we are finally putting America first.
The American economy had a lot of problems with it, no doubt. But the answer to the most competitive, most innovative, most entrepreneurial economy on planet Earth was not to detonate it. But the buffoon in chief, our Mad King Donald, knows best. And so let's have a taste of the insanity as it was announced. And then we'll see Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, talking in absolute incoherent terms on CNN.
One of the messages that I'd like to get out tonight is everybody sit back, take a deep breath, don't immediately retaliate. Let's see where this goes, because if you retaliate, that's how we get escalation.
Now, let's focus on the Treasury Secretary's dishonesty. And unlike the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, a five-star shyster, the Treasury Secretary actually has a position of responsibility with deep consequences for their actions.
Donald Trump understands America, he understands American workers, and he understands national security, and thank goodness he's going to protect us. And today's the beginning of him really protecting America and making America first.
And in this answer, you see how dishonest and incoherent all of this is. The purpose of the tariffs is to raise prices high enough so that companies will be forced to make their products in the United States as the means to lower the prices so that people will buy the product. The Treasury Secretary is comparing apples and oranges. First, these Trump tariffs are massive. The initial Trump tariffs were minuscule. Yet, even with those minuscule tariffs, taxpayers had to bail out the bankrupted farmers. So, the economic impact of these tariffs will be taxpayer bailouts, for example, for the farmers in Iowa that it bankrupts. Does that make sense to you if you're a lawyer in New Jersey? It does not. Today, the stock markets will crash. Trillions of dollars will be wiped from people's retirements. And Donald Trump doesn't care. He has assaulted the country's national security establishment. He has assaulted the rule of law. He has assaulted the Constitution. What Donald Trump is an arsonist. And so this is a day that will be long remembered because it is the beginning of an economic disaster that began not by a confluence of forces, but by the push of a detonation button designed in the Oval Office. And no matter what, no matter how bad and how chaotic things get, Donald Trump will go out there and he will say, we're winning. And the media will lap it up until it becomes too farcical to continue. That happened during the Second Iraq War when Baghdad Bob was standing in front of the Baghdad airport and he said there were no Americans at the airport as the American tanks came by. And that is what will happen with the American economy as misery is spread. Donald Trump is trying to recreate a world that's gone and it will never come back. The world of the 1950s, of the 1970s. We live in an integrated global economy that has made the United States the richest nation in world history. The distribution of the share of that wealth inside the boundaries and borders of the United States, that's a domestic political issue. That won't be impacted one way or the other by these tariffs, except for it will make everybody poorer. There is no plan. Donald Trump doesn't have a plan, but he's not allowed to be told no to. And so we spiral and we drift. And he's surrounded by sycophants who stab each other in the back to be the first to say yes. And then they run out of the room stabbing each other in the back to be the last to ever be in a position to have to say no to madness. And that is where we are. The country is in crisis. The fruits of the electoral decision are coming due. And there will be immense suffering, more homeless, more hungry. There will be chaos. There will be crime. And in the end, economic war has always yielded to the real thing. The most disastrous decision made by free people in the world, anywhere, in the last 80 years has been made by the American people who have grown fat and slothful, lazy and decayed enough to elect a con man hustler from Queens to the office of President of the United States. And every person who warned, who said what was coming was different, what was coming was terrible, will be proven right. Because what is coming is terrible indeed. It is Wednesday, May 21st. Let's look into the future. Let's imagine today when all of this is over. When the America that is lawful, decent, and good is fully restored. When this Trump catastrophe comes to its end and the people who did the damage and the violence and the mayhem that we are seeing sweep across this country are appropriately reviled for their arson, reviled for their assault, held to account by the High Court of History for their coup and for their lies about the stolen election that wasn't. These lies poisoned the links, the bonds between us all. what Donald Trump did was attack the cornerstones of America's civilization. Carolyn Leavitt, Trump's most odious child of the corn, serving him in the White House, his most prolific liar in an administration filled with them, turned the news conference over to children. And you know what? There wasn't very much difference in the caliber of the questions. Here's one from a little kid asking who Trump's favorite president might be.
Nora, go ahead.
Which is Trump's favorite president besides himself?
It's a good question, because it would be probably himself. No, I think that perhaps he would say George Washington. I know he speaks very highly of George Washington, who was, of course, the first president of our great country, and he has his big, beautiful portrait hanging in the Oval Office above the fireplace.
Obviously, they teach narcissism and its meaning early these days. Leavitt, of course, responded, George Washington. George Washington is a man who could have been king, could have been dictator or emperor, but he walked away from power. Became the first person in 2,000 years of history to do it. When King George III asked, what will Washington do? And he was told he'll retire to Mount Vernon. He said, that would make him the greatest man of this or any age. Donald Trump is no George Washington, but he let a Nazi loose with a chainsaw to assault the Constitution of the United States and government of the people, by the people, for the people. And that Nazi's name is Elon Musk, and he looks sad and forlorn, despite being the richest man in the world. This man has been chased out of Washington, and he's filled with self-pity. He is defeated in 150 days. And though he will retain wealth that most people cannot imagine, he's not going to Mars. And in a few short years, he won't have a security clearance. He won't have space contracts. He won't have military contracts. There won't be any pieces of shit known as Cybertrucks driving around on the roads. And we'll see a lot less Teslas. King Charles brought an electric car. It's Chinese made. And Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, who set forth with a maniacal glee and killed some of the poorest children in the world through a gospel of indifference and neglect, and took who knows what data on each and every one of us from the government. And this remains unknown. There's no accountability around what he did, but there will be. Let's watch Elon Musk's self-pity.
Unfortunately, what I've learned is that legacy media propaganda is very effective at making people believe things that aren't true.
What would an example of that be?
That I'm a Nazi, for example.
Right.
And how many legacy media publications, talk shows, whatever, try to claim that I was a Nazi because of some random hand gesture at a rally where all I said was that my heart goes out to you, and I was talking about space travel.
And let's set the record straight. He wasn't giving a heartfelt hand gesture. He was giving the Nazi salute. And his Italian advisor identified it as such in the moment. The Roman salute, the fascist salute, is what he called it. And Elon Musk did it 3 times in a state of ecstasy, of madness. He is the son of a sick man, and he is the grandchild of Canadian Nazis. He is a fascist. And he is somebody who despises humanity. He's sick. And this notion that he will have 100 children because his sperm is more powerful than the average sperm, because he is a superman, a god, and we are serfs, is the greatest lie of this whole era. He is a strange man and a drug-addled one who had no business being in a position of public responsibility, but was placed there by his fascist leader, who's discarded him. But for Elon Musk, because of the damage he's done, it is too late to escape accountability. It will hunt him down, lawfully, peacefully, but when the pendulum swings back in America, and it will swing back, Elon Musk will be held to account, as will this sick woman. How ignorant and vapid can you get? Let's watch Kristi Noem.
So, Secretary Noem, what is habeas corpus? Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country and suspend their right to.
Let me stop you, ma'am.
Suspend their
Habeas
right to.
corpus, excuse me, that's incorrect.
President
Habeas
Lincoln
corpus,
used it.
Excuse me. Habeas corpus is the legal principle that requires that the government provide a public reason for detaining and imprisoning people. If not for that protection, the government could simply arrest people, including American citizens, and hold them indefinitely for no reason. Habeas corpus is the foundational right that separates free societies like America from police states like North Korea. As a senator from the live free or die state, this matters a lot to me and my constituents and to all Americans.
The Wall Street Journal reports that Kristi Noem has set up a polygraph chamber inside the Department of Homeland Security. This sadistic woman is running around in the open with Corey Lewandowski, one of Donald Trump's foremost thugs, someone who has been reported by newspapers all over the world as being her taxpayer paid for open-air paramour, her Homeland Security boy toy. This woman is abusing her power, abusing her office, abusing the American people. And she is ignorant, dumb as a rock, vapid as the ocean is deep. And let's be clear about something. She is unfit. She is unqualified. And man, oh man, is she ignorant. Here's the deal with America's second greatest narcissist. Look at these pictures. This is an untreated psychiatric patient who commands what would be the base of America's secret police. It is an appalling moment, and this must be brought to heel. Now, habeas corpus is not a constitutional right. It's a principle. The rights are in the amendments. And Kristi Noem seems unfamiliar with all of them. The First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Eighth Amendment, the 14th Amendment. Kristi Noem is estranged from the Constitution like this entire MAGA extremist movement is. But here's the deal. Trump liked to talk about Hannibal Lecter, and he liked to tell his crowds that Hannibal Lecter was coming to America. If Hannibal Lecter gets caught, Hannibal Lecter gets to stand in front of a judge, period. And in America, in the end, if the Supreme Court says Hannibal Lecter, who's been shipped to an El Salvadoran concentration camp, has to come back to stand in front of a judge before we send him back to the concentration camp, then that's what happens. That's not up to Kristi Noem. Habeas corpus isn't a right. The rights contained in the Constitution are not handed down to us at Donald Trump's whim. And no, he cannot suspend habeas corpus without an act of Congress. These people are asserting powers that they have no right to assert. They're abusing their positions that they have no right to abuse. They have declared themselves both above the law, and they are neither. And so they will sit in the hearings one day, and they will testify under oath, and they will sit in depositions, and they will face justice for what they've done. They raised their hand against the American flag. They raised their hand against the American people, against our traditions, for their power, for their self-interest, and they called it patriotism. Well, there was a reason that apocryphal quote has hung around so long about fascism, that when it came to America, it would be wrapped in the flag and carrying the cross. And indeed, it has come to America wrapped in the flag and carrying a cross. This moment is one of menace and danger, one of indifference, where denialism and delusion have mixed to create a fantastical danger for all of our liberty. Kristi Noem, she's just a little bit behind Elon Musk on the curve of accountability. He's been run out of town on a rail, away from power. His project failed, but his project wasn't about cutting government. Government spending is going up under Trump. His project was about control over you, and he failed because you rose up and wouldn't have it, and Trump backed down, just like he has from every confrontation everywhere in the world. He is the weakest president, surrounded by the weakest, dumbest people, unqualified, doesn't begin to describe them, and we're in danger because of it. It is Friday, June the 20th. Across America, there is a great unease. Americans feel anxiety about the economy, about the impending war, about the malice of the government towards the people. We see out of control federal agencies. We see federal agents who feel a license to wear masks and to hide themselves as they go about the business of abducting people. The government has taken it upon itself to be able to ship people that it has abducted to places like El Salvador. When this moment is contemplated, let it never be said that we didn't see it coming, because the truth of the matter is what we've seen has been coming for a long time. And those forces that have gathered, this ill tide, this foul wind that brings it closer and closer to all of our lives, it must be confronted now. And what Donald Trump is trying to do is sow fear. Fear in people who might speak out against what is obviously wrong. This is wrong.
Judicial warrant. You have a judicial warrant. You have a judicial warrant. Can I see the judicial warrant? Can I see the warrant?
And of course, what happened to U.S. Senator Alex Padilla was wrong.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the Secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your heads off.
How many of our ICE agents have been doxxed for doing their duty, how they have been targeted.
These impertinent responses by Pete Hegseth, the disrespect, the extremism, it's all wrong. Pete Hegseth is not somebody who can be trusted to lead the United States Armed Forces into war. He despises half the country, as does his boss. Now, the deployment of the American military to America's cities, where the American people are made to submit to Donald Trump's authority at the tip of a bayonet, is an obscenity. And it should be considered that the parents of the soldiers and sailors and Marines and airmen who will be sent into harm's way in Iraq, that Trump calls vermin and scumbags, have to recognize the strange duality that it is them, the scumbag and the vermin, who would be handed the folded American flag if their child were to give the last full measure of devotion to their nation upon the orders of Donald Trump or Pete Hegseth, who disdain them so very much and whose political movement disdains them. And it should be remembered that it is not political movements that wage war. Donald Trump Jr. will not be parachuting out over Tehran. The war drums that are beating on the Hannity set and with Mark Levin, they sound familiar, don't they? Like from 22 years ago, the talk about an invincible military and fearless leaders and absolute power and easy conquest. But shouldn't leading senators know the population of Iran? Shouldn't we have a plan, a strategy? Shouldn't we know what victory looks like? How will we know? And how do we trust? Here's Donald Trump on the election he lost.
They used those cards to vote on the second election, my second, the one 2020. Because as everybody here knows, I won that election by a lot.
Here's Donald Trump on the economy.
When does it become the Trump economy?
It partially is right now. And I really mean this. I think the good parts are the Trump economy and the bad parts are the Biden economy.
Here's Donald Trump on COVID.
It affects virtually nobody. It's an amazing thing. By the way, open your schools. Everybody open your schools.
He's a man who can't tell the truth. And a man who can't tell the truth is a man who can't be counted upon in a moment of crisis when the truth is needed, when the people have to be rallied. Nobody among half the country that opposes Donald Trump trusts him, respects him. I was part of a political opposition that stood on the other partisan side of the fence from Barack Obama, but he could be trusted. He was a man of his word. He was a man who had the trust of the military because he valued their lives, unlike Donald Trump, who constantly disrespects their service.
Because I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero. 5.5 years. He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you. My rhetoric is going to keep us out of wars, and that's what happened. 82 years. Other than I finished off ISIS, but that was already started. We had stupid generals like Milley and Mattis, weak, stupid people. But fear not, we have great generals, just not the ones that you see on television all the time. And we wiped them out very quickly. It was going to take 5 years. Mattis said it would take 5 years, and I'm not sure we could do it. It took us like 4 weeks.
So, in this moment of extremism, on the edge of war, we should look at the actions of America's sickest senator, the one who released the sick tweets on X after an assassination. Mike Lee has grown increasingly strange and extreme. And this sick senator, so detached from humanity, so bubbled in by the small world of his social media feed and the protective bubble of his staff that worships him because he worships Trump. This man is the leader of a plan, an amendment to sell off hundreds of millions of acres of public lands across the West, magnificent spaces across Utah, across Idaho, across New Mexico. And these hundreds of millions of acres of public lands owned by all the American people will be sold off to a rapacious billionaire class, into power-hungry Arab sheikhs, into the investors, into the sovereign wealth funds, and to the private equity funds. But these lands belong to us. And so while Donald Trump deploys the Marines against the American people, his supporters in the right-wing media beat war drums, his most extremist and sick senators cheer assassination, invent lies to cast aspersions on their opponents while dealing in plots to sell off America's lands. It is an awful moment, and one that demands opposition and fearlessness of purpose, because what the American people have to fight for in this moment will be remembered. It will be remembered by the generations who look back and can appreciate at a moment when people mistook quiet for peace, a demagogue rose and ended the quiet and all illusions of peace and put on the table a prospect that forces all of us to embrace some fundamental values again. Values about our freedom, values about our liberty that are necessary for free people to be connected to, lest those free people lose their liberties. And that is what we should consider this weekend on what will be a historic summer in the United States that begins tomorrow. Donald Trump has written the preamble during his first months in office for a season of insanity, and it is now upon us. There is big trouble in MAGA. The insanity has exploded. Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi at each other's throats. Talk that Ron DeSantis is waiting in the wings to be the next Attorney General of the United States. Why is the Fox News conspiracy nut now the number 2 at the FBI threatening to resign? Why was there a meltdown at the White House between Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and the Barbie of Tallahassee? Why did Dan Bongino say her or me? Because of this.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
The file was on her desk. Here's a tweet from Donald Trump Jr. from 2023. Release the file. The fundamental problem is the weirdo pack, the menagerie of incompetency and weirdness that Trump has assembled on the Mar-a-Lago patio and brought to Washington, D.C. The conspiracy theorists are learning that the deep state, well, now it's them because they run it. And of course, Donald Trump has the power to order the federal government to do anything he pleases, according to Donald Trump. And we know this is somewhat true because we see this abomination in America's cities, the masked men. while at the fascist youth conference, Turning Point this weekend, the ICE director said this, demanding respect for his masked men.
I'm not going anywhere, either as the men and women of ICE. We're going to do the job that President Trump gave us to do. And let's talk about the hate. I've never before seen in my career such hate against the men and women of ICE in the Border Patrol. That gentleman just standing here, he ain't got the balls to put a badge on and go stand there and take the criminals on. The men and women of ICE have a dangerous job already. I was one of them. I was the first director of ICE that actually came up to the ranks. The 20,000 men and women that worked for me, I never asked them to do anything I didn't do myself because I was one of them. I wore the green uniform. I was a Border Patrol agent. I know what it's like to stand on a dirt trail at 3 o'clock in the morning. A sensor goes off. What's coming north? They don't know. Is it just an illegal alien looking for a better life? Or is it a heavily armed drug smuggler? They don't know, but they're going to stand there and take it on. These are the bravest men and women this nation has.
But there was a deeper truth there than the screaming young fascists cheering for the man who orders the beating of the Mexican child. It was Megyn Kelly who hit the nail on the head about what the young fascist cares the most about. And as it turns out, it's the conspiracies that encircle Donald Trump and flourish around the dead Jeffrey Epstein. Who was Jeffrey Epstein? Well, first and foremost, he was a man who called Donald Trump his best friend, and he was Donald's friend. Jeffrey liked them young, a lot of young girls. The young girls, in fact, numbered, by some counts, more than 1,000. One of them, her name was Virginia Guthrie, and she committed suicide this year. She was abused by Prince Andrew. Tara Palmieri from the Red Letter talked about her friend. And Tara investigated the Epstein case for 2.5 years. Here's the deal. Do you really believe that the only criminality in this was Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell? None of the other powerful men, none of the other billionaires who spent time with Epstein on the island, well, they didn't partake. They didn't see what was going on the jets and the planes. And so, as Donald Trump Jr. observed, release the names and let the chips fall where they may. This cannot be wished away by Donald Trump with plaintive screeds on Truth Social like this one, begging all of the boys and girls to behave, to fall in line, to come together, for the beatings of the Mexicans or to cover up the incompetency of Ice Barbie in Texas? The reality is the abuse was historic and the reckoning, well, not so much. But within his power, Donald Trump holds the ability to bring every person associated with Jeffrey Epstein to at least a public account. But why won't he do it? Why won't he release the documents that he said he would release? Here's Kash Patel in a different era.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book.
FBI.
But who? That is, I mean, there's...
Oh, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI. Just like the manifesto from the Nashville school shooting of the Catholic school. We still haven't seen that, right? It's not the Nashville police or PD saying we don't want this out. The FBI airmailed into that operation and said this is not getting out. Because they do that because this is another government gangster operation. All these local law enforcement communities get funding from the DOJ and FBI for local programs. And if you don't cooperate, you're not getting your $1 million for this, and you're not getting and that's a lot of money to these local districts.
Here's Dan Bongino in a different era.
That Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go. Keep your eye on this. Catherine Rumler, we need to keep the heat on this case, folks. There are a lot of people who are knee deep in the Washington swamp who are not telling you the truth about serious allegations out there that Epstein may have had video and audio of people out there doing things they shouldn't have been doing. And you should be asking yourself the question, how is it that all these people, the CIA director, the Obama fixer, Bill Clinton, all intersected paths with Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein isn't with us anymore, and nobody seems to want to talk about it. Outside of a few entrepreneurial media outlets saying, hey, this is a big deal.
And why is it that the files cannot be turned over to the American people like MAGA promised? And herein lies the great truth about the liar named Donald Trump. He's a con man and he's an abuser. And he made promises to the American people that he never had any intention of keeping, just like all those contracts he broke with all the working stiffs who had the misfortune to be on a subcontracting job at one of his casinos in Atlantic City. Donald Trump, what he has for the American people is bread and circuses, UFC fights on the lawn at the White House, beatings for Mexicans on Fox News. But justice for the women, for the girls, not so much. Because in the end, Epstein, Trump knew him well, knew exactly what he was, who he was. Never bothered Donald Trump. Donald Trump, well, all those people that he gave those powerful jobs to, there was a reason. And it was fundamentally this: make sure that list never, ever, ever becomes public. And that, after whipping all of these nuts up for many, many years, is a fire that even Trump the arsonist, it seems, can't quite contain. And that's a good thing for America. But remember this: when you process all of the insanity and all of the conspiracies around this, the victims, the girls, they were all very real. And this is the warning: beware powerful men with no morality, because they will take from innocents, and they do it mostly without getting caught. But this time, it seems like Teflon Don may be on the edge of being caught up into something that he's been caught up in for a very long time. Let's talk about Donald Trump's health. His hand. What's going on with him? Why can't he walk in a straight line? What is wrong with his ankles, with his circulation, with his heart?
Recent photos of the president have shown minor bruising on the back of his hand. This is consistent with minor soft tissue irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin, which is taken as part of a standard cardiovascular prevention regimen. This is a well-known and benign side effect of aspirin therapy. And the president remains in excellent health, which I think all of you witness on a daily basis here. So the president wanted me to share that note with all of you. I'm happy to take further questions on it.
Is the president terminally ill? Will he survive his first year in office? Or should the country begin to prepare for a transition to Vice President Vance ascending to the office of president? There's not a word that the White House says that can be trusted. Donald Trump is the most dishonest president in American history, the most prolific liar there has ever been. For example,
well, the war really started over NATO and Crimea, and they wanted Crimea back. That was given, not a shot fired by President Obama in perhaps the worst real estate deal I've ever seen. There's been a couple of them. I would say the Gaza Strip was a pretty bad one, too, given by Israel so they'd have peace. So they gave away a big percentage of their oceanfront property in order to have peace. How did that work out? Not so good. And Crimea is the apple of Ukraine. I mean, it's so beautiful. And Obama gave it away. Nobody ever mentions that. If I ever did that, the fake news would be, they would be writing about me day and night for years. He gave it away. He demanded that they let it go. And Russia came in and took it, just took it like from a candy from a baby. And it was really Obama's, not really, I mean, that was pure and simple, Obama's fault. What a terrible thing he did to that country. And so they lost their heart. They lost the heart and soul of the Ukraine 14 years ago, whatever it might be. And it was so unnecessary to do that. And that's when it really began, when Obama gave it away.
And here,
Mr. President, did y'all discuss any land swaps yesterday? Because we've talked a lot about the Donbass region. And what was the feeling in the room? What did the other leaders say about this?
Well, they understand. Look, everybody can play cute and this and that. But, you know, Ukraine's going to get their life back. They're going to stop having people killed all over the place. And they're going to get a lot of land. But this was a war. And Russia is a powerful military nation, you know, whether people like it or not. It's a powerful nation. It's a much bigger nation. It's not a war that should have been started. You don't do that. You You don't take on a nation that's 10 times your size. And, you know, military experts look, if it wasn't for the greatest military equipment, we make the greatest military equipment in the world, and we gave them, you know, whatever. They took probably a lot of money, too. But they had tremendous, you know, they had the Patriot missile, which is the best in the world. All the equipment, we make the best equipment in the world by far. Everyone else is like nothing. So we gave them a lot of equipment. Now, with that said, the Ukrainian soldiers were brave as hell because they're fighting a force that's much, much bigger and, in theory, much more powerful.
And here,
I want to get things done. You know, I've solved 7 wars. We ended 7 wars. I thought this would be one of the easier ones, and this has turned out to be the toughest one. India, Pakistan, I mean, these were big ones, and also all big ones, and some going for 31, 32 years, one for 35 years. The Congo, think of that, the Congo and Rwanda for 35 years. I got that one done. I got them all done, but this one is the one that is the most difficult, and I thought it would be an easy one. So I hope President Putin is going to be good, and if he's not, it's going to be a rough situation. And I hope that President Zelensky will do what he has to do. He has to show some flexibility also. The thing is a mess. This was started by Joe Biden. This was a war that should have never happened.
And here,
our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it.
Let's watch Donald try to walk in a straight line. The concealing makeup, well, it seems so haphazard. It's so obvious. But none of the media will ask about it. And so, I guess he's fit as a fiddle, right?
What does this do to standing on your feet too long, especially over the age of 70? You have the veins, the valves in the veins can become a little bit less competent than they usually are, those valves that bring blood flow up to the heart. You should actually elevate your legs. He's never going to do that, Ainsley. He's on his feet. As Sean Hannity said to me last night, he's on his feet all the time.
What about his hands? I think the White House was saying he shakes hands constantly, and that can cause the bruising.
Well, first of all, as you get older, your skin in your hands gets a little more friable. It's not as flexible, the skin, and on top of that, he's on aspirin, which can make the capillaries more prone to bruising or leaking, and he shakes hands all the time. And he has a vigorous handshake. Probably the people that shake back shake vigorously. He likes to shake hands. It's a really good sign of you know, bringing people together. And he's not going to stop doing that either.
What about the mixing up of names? Here.
Everybody's standing there now, as we know. You don't have to be doing any studies. They should be saying, please come in. Pritzker should be saying that. You know, I did a favor for Christy Whitmer, a good favor, I think, with the fish, the carp, the China carp. Did you ever hear of it? China carp. And it's taken over your Great Lakes. You know about that, right?
And here.
When I equated two people, I equated them. I shouldn't mention the names, but I equated Nikki Haley with Nancy Pelosi. I equated them. They said, oh, he doesn't understand the difference. No, I understand the difference. He doesn't understand the difference between Haley and Pelosi. No, we understand that. I understand a lot of differences. But anything you do, the fake news will take it and turn it. But with him, they take bad stuff and try and make it look good. With us, they take genius, pure genius, and they try and make it look, right? They try and make it look bad. It's the exact opposite.
What about the nonsense talk?
I think we need a ballroom, and that's happening. It's going to be a beautiful ballroom. Nobody comes to our southern border anymore. 3 months in a row, we had 0. I don't know if that's right. Okay. Baghdad we doubled up on Baghdad. We don't want to show the real numbers. Let me do numbers so it looks like it's going down. Not going down. It's why they want transgender for everybody transgender. That's a lot of police. That's so many. I never heard. That's like an army. And it's embarrassing for me to be up here. You know, I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia. They got in there because of woke. They were rough and tough. Look at these people here. Nothing,
Just absolute, utter incoherence. This subject absolutely should not be off limits. Democrats should be talking about it constantly. The president is sick, mentally and physically. That much is obvious. It's an important issue to attack the credibility of the administration and all of their shills and liars on TV. Make them defend the proposition that Donald Trump is physically fit, that he's morally and mentally fit. They can't do it, but they'll try. And in trying, their political position will weaken and erode. Right now, there's a tremendous dissonance in the country between the things that the people see on the news and what they experience. If you watch the news, there's very little suggestion that Trump's policies are deeply unpopular, but they are. Very. And growing more so every day. His popularity is cratering, like his health. It's just not something, I guess, we're allowed to talk about much anymore. But here, on The Warning, we'll talk about both. Without fear, without being chilled or intimidated. Because here at The Warning, the fascist thugs will be called out for what they are every day, 365 days a year. It is Wednesday, November 5th. Donald Trump told the truth, at last, for once. That's right, last night was not good for MAGA. What happened last night is but a ripple. These elections were off-year elections, but there's one result in particular that shows the magnitude of what is building out there. And that's in New Jersey, where there has not been a third term granted for an incumbent gubernatorial party ever. And yet, Governor-elect Sherrill won decisively in a state famous for razor-thin gubernatorial elections. And most New Jersey Democrats will say Governor-elect Sherrill, though the winner of a landslide, did not run an electrifying race, to say the least.
So tomorrow begins a new day. And at each new day in New Jersey, the sun rises over the Statue of Liberty, a daily reminder of her promise. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. She declares that her lamp lights the path to the golden door. That golden door is New Jersey. It always has been. And that expectation is well deserved, especially after this election, where we chose, we're going to follow Lady Liberty's beacon. We're not going to give in to our darker impulses. Here in New Jersey, we know that this nation has not ever been, nor will it ever be, ruled by kings.
So what could it have been? What was in the air that the American people, where they had a chance to vote, were saying? It's funny when you think about politics, the standards to which we hold the voters when we process the outcome. It's so different from, for example, movies. When a movie bombs, nobody looks at it and says, well, it was because of the supporting actress that the people didn't like the movie. It wasn't because of the star actor or this scene or this word. People just appreciate that en masse, people looked at the movie like a dog tastes the dog food and came to the conclusion it sucks. And that was the verdict of the American people who got to vote yesterday on the first year of MAGA. Donald Trump said, 1 year ago, this very day, is the anniversary of his big, beautiful victory. The big, beautiful victory that ushered in the age of Sector Chief Bovino in his SS overcoat and Himmler haircut. The age of the fascist Stephen Miller, threatening scores of millions of Americans. the age of the masked thug, the age of the federal agent who shoots a priest in the head. This, 1 year later, is the fruit of the Trump victory. Unprecedented corruption, unprecedented greed, and through all of it, day by day, the economy is weakening. The speculators are growing more feverish, and the insanity underneath it all continues to spread. And so in America, the people get to decide. They get to choose. And this morning, despite all of Trump's threats, all of his bluster, there wasn't a lot of talk about rigged elections, just acceptance.
It's time for Republicans to do what they have to do, and that's terminate the filibuster. It's the only way you can do it. And if you don't terminate the filibuster, you'll be in bad shape. We won't pass any legislation. There'll be no legislation passed for 3.25. We have 3.25 years, so that's a long time. But when they can't do an extension, and John, I think they've done an extension every single time they've ever been asked forever. This is the first time they haven't done an extension. Extensions are supposed to be easy, but if they won't do an extension, they won't do any bill, even a simple bill. And we should do our own bills. We should get out. We should do our own bills. We should open up. We should start tonight with the country's open. Congratulations. Then we should pass voter ID. We should pass no mail-in voting. We should pass all the things that we want to pass to make our elections secure and safe, because California is a disaster.
In the end, corrupt American media has allowed Donald Trump to say things over and over again that are nonsensical until, like a jagged stone rubbed smooth by the water, we come to think that it's possible that in America, someone other than us will decide who leads. And that lie may be the only one bigger than the lies Trump has told about the stolen election, about all of his conspiracies. The American people, in a year, shortly after we know the outcome of the next World Series, all of us across all 50 states will have an opportunity to obliterate the miserable Congress, the MAGA Congress, the Trump Congress, and to put a check on his power, and to say to every corrupt, preening, arrogant, screaming official like Pam Bondi here, or Kash Patel here, or Robert Kennedy here, that we have a message, and it's perfectly clear and very simple. Get a lawyer and preserve records. Whether it is murder on the high seas in the Southern Caribbean, whether it is the police baton being used to crack open windows and yank children out of cars, whether it is that child sleeping on a concrete floor in misery, guarded by a thug who dares to wear an American flag on their uniform shoulder. We will know all that has been done in our name. We will know every corrupt deal between every corrupt foreign Arab potentate and the Donald Trump administration. We will know every crypto hustle. We will know it all. It will be studied for decades. But the American people have sent a message. That message is muffled by the corrupt corporate media, but it rings out loud and clear this morning. Had enough? The people who voted from sea to shining sea, their resounding answer to that question was 100% yes. And so now, 1 year out, having endured 1 year of Trump's miseries, the American people can see the light at the end of the tunnel. They can see the possibility of the first check that's ready to be placed in Donald Trump's way. This country doesn't belong to him and MAGA and his thugs and his sycophants and his courtiers and his corrupt billionaires. It belongs to us, the American people. And yesterday was a reminder that offshore, beyond the horizon, a great tsunami is building, and it's coming to shore. And in a year, it will wipe away the hideous excesses of this vulgar fascist regime. And the waters of the flood, when they recede, will lay bare the deep damage, the deep corruption, and the profound rot of what Donald Trump has done to America. It is Monday, November 24th. It's Thanksgiving week. Here in America, one thing that none of us should be thankful for is the collapse of any possible information coming out of a Sunday morning show. It used to be that very talented journalists would challenge very powerful people with facts and information, and they would do so on behalf of their viewers, the American citizen. The idea is that in a democracy, the citizen has to be informed. They have to have some stakes in the game. The Sunday morning shows have become ritualized reality show theater. It is the beginning of a week of farce and misinformation and nonsense. Let's start with the Secretary of Agriculture. Some Washington, D.C. MAGA red hat explaining to the American farmer that things are okay is offset by some statistics, including one which, well, I'll rest my case on. One thing that's happened during the Trump presidency is the American farmer has leapt to the front of the pack again, leading the way in suicides. Suicide is a disease of despair and hopelessness. And right now in America, millions of people are discussing suicide with a chatbot. That is the sickness that has come to our land by the power of the hedge funds, the tech oligarchs, and the media lords like Larry Ellison and David Ellison, who want to control all of the avenues of information. I wonder why. At any rate, here is one of the great clowns of the Trump era, a Sunday show stalwart, Howard Lutnick.
Sure, what is the backup plan should the Supreme Court rule against you?
Well, we are going to win the case. It's pretty clear. I sat in the Supreme Court. We're going to win the case. But the fact is the president has all sorts of policies and tools throughout. He's got tariff rules of 232 in my department. He's got 301. He's got 338. Tariffs are going to be a part of this administration's national security and national economic protection of the American people. But we are going to win the case. So you can worry about the backup plan, but you're going to watch the Supreme Court back this president, because this president has proven that he can protect America, and IEPA is protecting America. So we are going to win this case. You heard it from me. I feel confident. I sat through the case. We are going to win.
This cretin has no credibility whatsoever. The decision to put him on and allow somebody you know is lying and is a clown to misinform your audience is an act of corruption. And yet, it never stops. At any rate, there is no person, no bigger clown, no more obvious fool, maybe, in the entire administration than Lutnick, who insists the tariffs that are breaking the back of the American family, breaking the back of the American worker, breaking the back of the American economy are in fact working and good for you. Let's watch.
What's your expectation, Secretary, in terms of a second reconciliation bill or a standalone $2,000 check program to go out?
Look, the tariffs are an American policy. The president wants the American people to understand how great tariffs are for them. And so one of the ways to prove to the American people how great tariffs are is to have them share in a part of 1 year's income from these tariffs. And that's $2,000 a head, as he said, for people who need the money. You know, he's going to constrain it to people who need the money. And that's exciting. So the president's got that on his desk. I know that's something he wants to achieve, and his legislative team will figure out the best way to do it. But what he's trying to do is make sure people in America understand that tariffs are their policy. It's to make America stronger, and it can also benefit their pocketbook, and that is coming next year from the president.
The great talent of the Trump administration comes at communicating false outrage over invented insults while committing the acts they decry over and over and over again. The most corrupt administration in history coming into Thanksgiving has an approval rating in the 30s, disapproval ratings in the 60s, is finally managing to do something that a lot of us thought was impossible, which is to see Donald unite the country. He's doing it, of course, around the only thing he could possibly unite anybody around, which is despising him and his treachery and his dishonesty. What is appeasement? It is a philosophy that holds, if I feed the crocodile first, he'll eat me last. The problem with the philosophy is, in the end, looking ahead to what fate has in store, the best outcome is to be the last eaten by a giant reptile, which is not a good result. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene is an exquisite example of a person whose ignorance was reinforced by the insanity that's curated behind the imprisonment of the algorithmic wall erected by this generation's most dangerous drug pushers, America's tech oligarchs, feasting on conspiracy, eating a stew of insanity. Marjorie Taylor Greene was trained to become a 21st century political leader, not by a party, but by the American culture. And the American culture is insane. And she went there and became schooled in the ways of Washington and power and politics, and saw all around her fraudulence. And a legitimately crazy person, in the end, couldn't believe that she was part of something so crazy that it would cover up, on behalf of the leader she worshiped like a god, his complicity, his partnership, his friendship with the most notorious child sex trafficker and criminal of the 21st century. And so that was the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back. A faithful sycophant suddenly called a traitor because she wouldn't get in line with the pedophile who is the leader's friend. Now, she has some explaining to do about why she ran around for so long with Matt Gaetz, properly and clearly and credibly accused, well-sourced reporting that makes clear he had sex with a 17-year-old child, a McDonald's worker who needed a hand up when she was leaning out that McDonald's window, and instead Congressman Gaetz gave her ecstasy and $400 so he could sleep with her. Megyn Kelly doesn't understand the concept, but I'm sure most of you do. Here's the deal about all of these wretched people: Carolyn Leavitt, Jared Kushner, the list goes on. A great nation of 350 million souls is under siege by about 100 villains who hold political power because we let them get it. And now we have to take it away and be thankful that in real life, outside of the mirage, outside of the illusion, outside of the sick play, which we have all become yoked actors in, we have the power, not Donald Trump. In his imagination, in his fiction, in his theater, he is king of the world and dictator of America. But in real life, he is the leader of a despised and failing political novelty act, a great grotesquerie, a sewer act that rose to the top, a great desecration, like a wave that swept over the country, is starting to recede. It's going to leave an awful mess, but it will also leave behind an important lesson. And from that lesson and out of that mess can come better days if we remember some important principles. Government in America is about securing the blessings of liberty, and the purpose of life in our free country is about the pursuit of happiness. Not riches, not power, but happiness. of the common man and woman who ought not to become serfs of the world's richest men and women, whose insatiability and rapaciousness, combined with Trump's malice and corruption, has threatened to drown the American experiment in a pit of venom and a sea of filth. And to that, all of us, patriots, must say no. Not on our watch, not in this time, not in our country. We oppose it, we dissent from it, and we will break it in half before this struggle is over. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave, or the land of the free and the home of the brave. Alex Preddy was brave, Renee Good was brave, and they were both murdered by cowards, masked agents of the federal Gestapo, constituted by Donald Trump, by Kristi Noem, by Corey Lewandowski, by Greg Bovino, by Tom Homan, by Pam Bondi. It was turned loose against the American people, and it has brought mayhem, chaos to our land. This is not law enforcement. This is criminal thuggery. This is the violence of the state being directed against government of the people, by the people, for the people. And the American people see it clearly. They are in revolt against Donald Trump and his Nazis, against his fascists. Donald Trump's political coalition that elected him in 2024 has fallen apart. It has collapsed. It no longer exists. Look at these numbers. Or is this all part of the great conspiracy against MAGA? All of the elections where Trump doesn't win, of course, are fake. All of the violence that Donald Trump has unleashed is in response to terrorists. Yes, Alex Preddy was just like Mohammed Atta, the intensive care unit nurse at a VA hospital who gave his life to serving others, snuffed out by American fascists. It is January 27th, 2026. I'm Steve Schmidt, and my friends, these poll numbers are real, and MAGA is in panic. There are few people more odious than the MAGA moron Jesse Waters on Fox News. Before watching this idiocy, it's important to remember two things. Illegal immigrants don't vote, and a congressional district is 800,000 people. Jesse Waters is incoherent.
Donald Trump has reduced illegal immigration and violent crime to century-low levels. And the Democrat response is violence and blackmail. That is absolute craziness. Shutting down the government did not work very well last time. Defunding the police did not work very well last time. I don't know why they're doing it, but here's the reason. It's about power. The census is already going to strip away a bunch of electoral votes from the Democrats based on population next time, all right? So they're facing that. They could still win the blue wall and not win the election next time. And Donald Trump has suctioned up 10,000 illegals out of Minneapolis already, which basically takes away a congressional district.
And let's go to the White House, where the liar, Carolyn Levitt, answers a question.
On Stephen Miller's comments, will Stephen Miller be apologising to the family of Alex Pretty for calling him, quotes, an assassin who tried to murder federal agents, despite the fact that, as you say, this is still under investigation?
Look, again, this incident remains under investigation, and nobody here at the White House, including the President of the United States, wants to see Americans hurt or killed and losing their lives in American streets. And we mourn for the parents. As a mother myself, of course, I cannot imagine the loss of life, especially losing one's child. And that same empathy from the President goes for the parents of angel families, parents of victims of illegal alien crime across our country as well. And that's exactly why the President continues to be wholeheartedly committed to deporting the worst of the worst criminals from our country.
She's nervous, can't you see? Looks like for the first time in a long time that a little humility has descended on her as the disgust and the revulsion of the American people becomes clear. Greg Bovino is gone, but that's not enough. Corey Lewandowski must be fired, and Kristi Noem must be fired, and Stephen Miller must be fired. These sick people have unleashed a secret police in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And they did so with Nazi rhetoric, with scapegoating, with lies backed up by the propagandists on Fox. And what they have brought to this country is chaos, is division. Where they have led us is to the edge of an abyss. America, as we knew her, has been wrecked by MAGA. The America that can be and is not yet here can be the answer to MAGA. Out of this travesty, out of these murders and deaths, something better can come. Are we going to build the shining city on a hill, or are we going to take the greatest achievement in the history of human civilization, the American Republic, and watch it get burned down by Donald Trump and 100 henchmen and women? Are we going to lose our country to Barry Weiss and her greed, to David Ellison, a Nepo baby, to the Santa Monica Goebbels, Stephen Miller, to Kristi Noem and Pam Bondi, degenerate liars, to thugs like Tom Homan and Nazis like Greg Bovino? Is that all it took to take freedom from all of us? Is 20 people and some guns? Every right that we have as Americans is under siege and under threat by the criminal gang that knocked down the East Wing of the White House. We are subjected to propaganda from morning to night. The American people have this garbage shoved down their throats, but they are rejecting it. They are not eating the garbage. Melania Trump is one of the most reviled women, least respected, least interesting on the entire planet. And the fact that Jeff Bezos spent $40 million on a movie and another $40 million trying to sell it and made it an emergency for his company to try to make sure we watched it does not mean that we cannot see what is happening all around us. We know. And it's why no one is going to that movie. It's why nobody believes the lies about Alex Preddy being a terrorist. Nobody believes the lies about Renee Good being a threat. Kristi Noem has no credibility, zero. Pam Bondi, the pedophile protector, has zero credibility, none. Stephen Miller, the degenerate liar who quoted Joseph Goebbels at the Charlie Kirk memorial service and promised that he would unleash revenge against his hate, us, has no credibility. These people are going down. Every masked agent, their identities will be known by the people who they betrayed. ICE is Gestapo. ICE is Trump's secret police. Its commanders are criminals. Its leaders are criminals. And the dead patriots who opposed it shall join the pantheon of American greats who gave what Lincoln called the last full measure of devotion to the Republic, to the Union, to the United States of America. These hours are long. And people are tired, sick and tired. But the American people are not supine. The American people are not appeasing this. The American people are leading the way. And finally, the Democratic Party's politicians and careerists like Chuck Schumer are getting in line to do their jobs, to stand up for what? The Constitution. The American Revolution was fought against a tyrannical king who quartered his army, who kicked in the doors of the people and took away the rights to speech, to assembly. He made them at his whim, and the American people said no. Our rights do not come from the whim of a king. They come from the power of the Creator. And that idea, the most revolutionary in world history, has lit the world, and it will light the way in this fight for the future and the soul of America against the despotic fascism of MAGA and the worst president in American history times 10, the loathsome Donald Trump. He is indeed America's Hitler. And here's the thing about Hitler. We know the last thing he did. We know how all of his evil accumulated. With Trump, we don't know the next thing he'll do. And that's why the danger grows every day.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the most batshit crazy attorney general of them all? It is February 12th. I'm Steve Schmidt. Well, what can I say? There are no words to describe the national embarrassment and the disgrace of Pam Bondi, the lawless attorney general who is covering up child rape for Donald Trump, who she called the greatest president in American history, greater than Washington, greater than Lincoln, greater than FDR, and John Kennedy. In fact, Donald Trump is the worst president in American history, and certainly the most faithless. Pam Bondi is a laughingstock, a malignant and vicious clown.
Now, I want to turn back to the Epstein survivors, because President Trump may have been a little bit embarrassed by the release of those tax returns. How much do you think the claims of these survivors are worth? As the good congressman from Kentucky just pointed out, there were lots of survivors who had decided, for reasons of their own, never to release their names. That determination was represented to people in Congress, and we built it into our federal law that their names could not be released, and yet you published their names, their phone numbers, their addresses, personally identifying information. If Donald Trump can get $10 billion theoretically from the Department of Justice, how much should these people get for a far worse violation of their privacy rights and a far greater danger established to them in their lives?
Do you even know who Chase Mulligan is? You're so obsessed with, you don't, do you?
I'm going to teach you the rules again. You're the Attorney General of the United States. We have rules here.
You're obsessed with him.
You're the Attorney General of the United States.
With obsessed with Donald Trump. You have Trump derangement syndrome.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like my time restored. I'd like my time restored.
In your district. In your district, and you don't even know about it, about keeping children safe from online predators.
And here.
Bondi, 6 days ago, you posted online, quote, "If you come for law enforcement, the Trump administration will come for you," end quote. I want to show you just a brief video. It's about 30 seconds, and I'll ask you a couple questions about it.
You guys are disgusting, man. Hey, you guys are disgusting. I'm former law enforcement. You're disgusting. You are the Nazi. You are the Gestapo. You can't see it because you're chasing your pension, right? Your pension, your retirement, right? That's what runs your life, your retirement. The sad thing is they're not even going to get their pension because it's going to be worthless. And shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. Yeah. Fuck that. Yeah.
Attorney General Bondi, that man works for you now, right?
Who was that, Congressman?
The man in that video, the one who was in the police-worn body cam footage, the one allegedly yelling, "Kill him," at police officers on January 6th, his name is Jared Wise.
He does work for us.
He works for you at the Department of Justice.
He does.
This is an individual whom a federal grand jury indicted for 2 felonies and 4 misdemeanors related to his participation in the attack on January 6th. One of those charges was forcibly assaulting, resisting, opposing, impeding, intimidating, and interfering with police with the intent to commit another felony. This is who you choose as the chief law enforcement officer of the United States of America to hire at the Department of Justice. Someone on video yelling, "Kill him," at police officers? Right?
I believe he was pardoned by President Trump.
Oh, he was pardoned. You're right.
And here.
Under which PIN was created was Gerald Ford. It was created after Watergate. I'm not asking a question, Madam Attorney General. The administration under which it was created was Gerald Ford. When you first started as the Attorney General of the United States, there were 35 people working in that office. There are now 2 people working in that office because you have gutted it. How many people work for the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team in the criminal division today?
Can I answer the question about Penn?
I've asked you a question. How many
You've
people
asked
work?
me a question, but you don't
How
want
many
the
people
answer.
work
I'm not
for the
gonna answer your
National
questions the way you
Cryptocurrency
want.
Enforcement Team? You won't answer how many
I'll
people?
answer Penn. Him will not be
you know what?
weaponized.
You know what?
What's funny
Madam
about
Attorney General,
this?
I'll say to the chairman.
What's funny about this?
Chairman, you know what the answer is? And I think I
What's
understand
funny
why the
about
Attorney General
this?
does not want to answer the question. Because you eliminated the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team last year. So I understand why you don't want to tell the American people who works there.
Yeah, I
no one
understand
works
why
there
you don't want to
anymore,
talk about
Madam
Mohammed
Attorney
Solomon
General.
in
So,
your district.
In any event,
who
I would
murdered people.
Mr. Chairman, will you stop the clock so his time is not wasted by the witness?
I've been very generous with allowing extra time when we have these little disputes.
I understand.
You got the time, Mr. Goose.
I might as well ask the chairman these questions.
I'd be happy
because
to answer
what
some
is
of your
fun-
questions.
What's profound, the questions I've
Profound?
asked,
The crime in
questions
your
I've
district.
asked, Mr. Chairman, are not trick questions. They're not gotcha questions. They're actually basic questions about how the Department of Justice functions and the unwillingness of this Attorney General to answer them in good faith. When a member of Congress asks how many people work at the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team and the Attorney General refuses to answer it, it is not a coincidence. It's because she eliminated the team. Why? Because her boss, the President of the United States, is making money hand over fist, $1.4 billion over the course of the last year through cryptocurrency holdings.
This is nice. Isn't she cute here?
I mean, you can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch. Not on our time. No way. And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, oh, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
Lawyer, not even a lawyer.
Committee will be in order.
This woman has desecrated the rule of law in the United States. She has turned the envy of the world's justice systems into a punchline and a joke. But do not be afraid. And know this. Yesterday defined Pam Bondi for the rest of her life. That's it. When she passes, when that day comes, what she did yesterday will play on an infinite loop. What she did yesterday will be taught in law schools for as long as the country exists, as legal ethics come back into fashion. The American people see her clearly. That's why her kangaroo court attempt to lock up Alyssa Slotkin and Jason Crow and Mark Kelly and 3 other patriotic American veterans of the United States Congress was laughed out of the grand jury room. In every room Pam Bondi ever walks into for all the days of the rest of her life, at whatever Cracker Barrel will have her, the disbarred and disgraced attorney, she will be laughed at. She will be snickered at. She will be joked about. She is a living, walking traffic accident, a bad acid trip come to life. The Attorney General of the United States in 1 year's time has obliterated the reputation of the Justice Department. It cannot be trusted. The prosecutors cannot be trusted, and her word is meaningless.
Donald Trump is a fraud, a liar, a sexual predator, a felon, and the worst president in the history of the United States. He is absolutely the most treacherous and the most faithless. His constitutional oath for him was a joke. Tonight, the most corrupt president in American history will travel up Pennsylvania Avenue to a crime scene. He will return once again to the place that his mob ransacked at his command, at his direction. What Donald Trump did on January 6th, 2021, was try to burn down the Republic. He failed, but he hasn't stopped trying. Tonight is a desecration. Tonight is February 24th, 2026. I'm Steve Schmidt. MAGA is falling apart. It is failing. What is the State of the Union? The State of the Union is terrible. It is rotten. It is diseased. This was Alex Preddy. This was Renee Good. This is Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche.
You assure the American public that President Trump, like every other prominent person whose name came up in relation to the Epstein Files, that all documents, photos, and anything relevant to him connected to the case are being released.
I mean, yes, I can assure that we complied with the statute, we complied with the act, and there is no, we did not protect President Trump, we didn't protect or not protect anybody. I mean, I think that there's a hunger or a thirst for information that I do not think will be satisfied by the review of these documents. And there's nothing I can do about that.
And here's Pam Bondi.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch. Not on our time. No way. And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, oh, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
Lawyer, not even a lawyer.
Committee will be in order.
Time, and I should get back at least 45 seconds.
We will give you a few more seconds. I said that already.
45 seconds. Okay.
The State of the Union is one where the Department of Justice now displays a Trump banner. It has become an institute of injustice. Political opponents are prosecuted these days. American citizens routinely are beaten, have weapons pulled on them, and children are sleeping on concrete floors without medicine, malnourished, their spirits broken. These are warehouses. Here's one in Social Circle, Georgia. Soon, according to the Department of Homeland Security, it will be converted into a mega prison, a concentration camp. What's the State of the Union in the 250th year of American independence? It is in a sorry state. It is in an apathetic state. Indifference to the suffering, the discrimination against, and the bigotry of Donald Trump is everywhere. These sites, not yet open, will be remembered 100 years from now, if they do open, as places of transcendent evil, and they will stain our national honor forever. It used to be said that America was great because America is good, but nobody with a straight face can say that. Not anymore. Not with this vile man as the commander-in-chief. Let's remember some of his insanity, not just from the past year, but just the past 2 weeks. Here.
And I had to go through, and I still do, fake stories, fake polls. I mean, I had polls for the election that showed I was going to get swamped, and I won in a landslide. They were fake polls because polls are tough. You know, when you get a fake poll, I get them today. I saw one today that I'm at 40%. 40%. I'm not at 40%. I'm at much higher than that. I mean, I'd love to run against anybody. The real polls say you kill everybody. It wouldn't even be close. But you go through the fake polls, you go through the fake stories. And I said, you know, it was good because this is really a much more powerful term than I would have had if I had run, because it was just one of those things. There would be nothing to compare it to.
Here.
I want to let you know that the United States is going to make a contribution of $10 billion to the Board of Peace. Thank you. And we've had great support for that number. And that number is a very small number when you look at that compared to the cost of war. That's 2 weeks of fighting. It's a very small number. It sounds like a lot, but it's a very small number. So we're committed to $10 billion.
Remember this?
Mr. President, a number of Republicans are calling on you to apologize for that post. Is that something you're going to do?
No, I didn't make a mistake. I mean, I look at a lot of thousands of things. I looked at the beginning of it. It was fine. And they had that one post, and I guess it was a takeoff. By the way, a lot of people covered. If you look at where it came from, I guess it was a takeoff on The Lion King. And certainly it was a very strong post in terms of voter fraud. Nobody knew that was at the end. If they would have looked, they would have seen it.
He is petulant. He is sick. And he is, yes, evil. Tonight, Trump's cabinet of degenerates will file in, and they will be applauded, but not by the American people. Each is their own disgrace, and each stands tonight at the peak of their power, happy, grinning, content, corrupt before the fall. And mark my words, the fall is coming. America will persevere through all of this, but it will be painful, and things will get worse. and much of the damage will be irreversible. America, for the balance of all of our lives, will never be as powerful or respected as it once was. But over time, something better may emerge. A healthy democracy, a vibrant society, does not allow a sick and twisted man like Donald Trump to become its leader. That he has is evidence that America is broken. We stand at a point in time with two conflicting forces opposing one another, pushing up against one another. They are the forces of decline and renewal. We will decline further, but there is a stirring in the land. Donald Trump's approval numbers are collapsing. His support is fading away. His numbers stand at the mid-30s, and soon his approval level will be at 30%. Understand the lowest he can conceivably go is 26%, and he's 10 points away. Tonight, this will be the lowest rated State of the Union in modern history. No one's going to watch, but the Epstein survivors will be there, and they will be glaring with the full force of their innate morality, looking into the eyes of the gangster at the podium, looking into the eyes of a charter member of the Epstein class. And he'll see them. He knows they're there. And he knows he cannot escape the truth. And the truth is this: Donald Trump is the worst president in American history. An evil man, a sexual predator, a deviant, a liar, a filthy fraud with a disgraceful family. His time in power will not last in the overall scheme of things for very much longer. There are but 1,000 days left in this presidency, and we will endure through it. And then the reckoning will come. This time next year, the Democrats will control the Congress. And the first thing they should make clear is they won't be giving an invitation to this demagogue to come up Pennsylvania Avenue to assault with lies what his supporters assaulted with weapons. America is at war. And the reason, according to Marco Rubio, is because Israel was going to attack. And since they were going to attack and Iran might retaliate, America must go to war.
The second question that's been asked is, why now? Well, there's two reasons why now. The first is it was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond and respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact, it bared to be true, because in fact, within an hour of the initial attack on the leadership compound, the missile forces in the south and in the north, for that matter, had already been activated to launch. In fact, those had already been pre-positioned.
Is that the definition of making America great again? America has never looked weaker. We have become a vassal state, and our soldiers Hessians for the Israelis and the Saudis, who cheerleaded Trump and manipulated him into starting a war that is spiraling all over the Middle East, which is in flames. There is no plan. There is no strategy. Wars are much easier to start than they are to end. Let's get deeper into the most famous broken promise in American history, which is this. It is Tuesday, March the 3rd, and I'm Steve Schmidt. Why are we fighting this war? Pete Hegseth and others say it's for regime change. Yet others say it's for the nuclear weapons. Some say it's for the Iranian people, so they may have democracy. Marco Rubio says it's for Israel. Why are we fighting? There has never been more confusion from the most senior people in the government about why military action has commenced, ever. It's not that it's a foolish war, which it is. It's a war that the people who incepted it cannot tell you why it is young Americans are dying far from home. Here's Trump.
And we have, right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that. We'll do it. Whatever somebody said today, they said, oh, well, the president wants to do it really quickly. After that, he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this. Do you agree with that, Pete? I don't think there's anything, Mr. General. I think There's nothing boring about it. Somebody actually said from the media, I think you'll get bored after about a week or two. No, we don't get bored. I never get bored. If I got bored, I wouldn't be standing here right now, I guarantee you that, to go through what I had to go through.
Here's Rubio.
That's in Iran despite years of sanction. Imagine a year from now or a year and a half from now the capabilities they would have to inflict damage on us. It's an unacceptable risk, especially in the hands of a regime that's run by radical clerics. The Ayatollah was a radical cleric. That entire regime is led by radical clerics who don't make geopolitical decisions. They make decisions on the basis of theology, their view of theology, which is an apocalyptic one. That has to be taken very seriously as well. So that was the purpose for what this operation is all about.
Here's Hegseth.
We will leave Iran when we complete all of our objectives. What are our objectives? And can you share more information on how the soldiers who were killed were killed?
Well, I laid out the objectives, as did the chairman. They're completely nested. I mean, Iran has an ability to project power against us and our allies in ways that we can't tolerate. So whether that's ballistic missiles and drones, so offensive capabilities, effectively their navy, which would attempt to set other terms and impose different costs, drone capabilities, which we laid out there, and ultimately, though, this tying it back to Midnight Hammer, the president has been willing to make a deal.
Here's Mark Wayne Mullen.
But it's up to the the Iranian people to choose their next leader. It's up to them to rise up and kick this regime out of place. If they do not, then they will be with a different leader, but the same regime. If they choose to get a different leader that we can have a relationship with, which we would love to. Prior to 1979, we had a good relationship with Iran. But if they choose to pick up a leader, Stuart, we will surround that leader, not necessarily with boots on the ground, but with assets to make sure that leader can be protected, rise up, and then the Iranian people will have the opportunity to choose their next leadership.
They are like hamsters scrambling on their wheel. Each day that the Iranian regime survives, the American position will deteriorate. There has never been a successful war fought entirely from the air, which is why Donald Trump said this about American forces being put on the ground. Does anybody remember how long we stayed in Iraq? Iran is a much, much larger country. And the truth of the matter is, the United States Army and the United States Marine Corps are not big enough to fight a war alone in Iran without allies. You do know what that means if you're a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, a spouse. It means that there will be a draft. Yes, a draft. But Baron Trump's not going. Yair Netanyahu is partying in Miami. He's not fighting in the Israeli army. Don Jr. and Eric, their kids, they're too good for war. Too important for the future of the Trump brand. But your kids, they're good to go. This war will be remembered even in its earliest days. It can be seen clearly as among the foremost disasters in American foreign policy history, which is saying something because we've had nothing but disasters for 25 years. Disaster upon disaster upon disaster, which all piled up and led to Trump. And now here we are on the edge of World War III. There are 17 countries that have had Iranian missiles fall upon them. This was a war of choice, a war of Trump's choice. And every American should understand that when they go to the gas station and fill up, that's on Trump. Just like the higher prices are on Trump for everything you try to buy. The Trump presidency is a disaster. It is wrecking America, not making it great again. And more people obviously see that clearly, but too few saw it clearly enough when there was time to stop the madness. Donald Trump will be president for almost 3 more years. And by the time we get to the end, nothing will be the same. And when our children ask, how did that happen? Why did it happen? The answer will be, because we voted for it. Nancy Mace asked a question that I too have often asked myself. It was about Lindsey Graham, and she wondered, why would he say that? Here's what he said.
I can't go to South Carolina and say we're fighting and you won't publicly fight. What you're doing behind the scenes, That has to stop. The double dealing of the Arab world when it comes to this stuff needs to end. I go back to South Carolina. I'm asking them to send their sons and daughters over to the Mideast. What I want you to do in the Mideast, to our friends in Saudi Arabia and other places, step forward and say, this is my fight too. I join America. I'm publicly involved in bringing this regime down. If you don't, you're making a great mistake, and you're going to cut off the ability to have a better relationship with the United States. I say this as a friend.
Think about that. Lindsey Graham, who is not a lord of Donald Trump's roundtable, he's elected and he's up for re-election. And he's asking South Carolina's parents to trust him to send their children to war in Iran with no plan for what comes next. A war we are losing. It is Wednesday, March the 11th, and I'm Steve Schmidt. Let's talk about trust, judgment, and loyalty. Loyalty should be to the country, to the U.S. Constitution, but it's not. Watch this from Steve Witkoff.
We're fiduciaries, and we're very loyal to the United States of America and to the Commander-in-Chief, President Trump. And the job was to go there and to determine if, in good faith, we could get to an agreement with them, if in good faith we could have oversight protocols to make sure they were complying with the agreement based on past bad behavior, and in good faith whether they would stand by an agreement like this.
He is Trump's real estate buddy who now runs around the world doing corrupt deals with Jared Kushner. He is what the Russians call a useful idiot, and he is the man who allows Vladimir Putin's war of aggression to rage unabated in Ukraine. Now, as a result of the efforts and part of Jared Kushner and Trump's team of sycophants and incompetents, all of them wearing the shoes he gifted them. Look at these from Little Marco. 3 sizes too big in January. These are the $145 Florsheim shoes that J.D. Vance has 4 pairs of. Trump is obsessed on giving his men, his minions, his little men, his tiny men, the shoes that he insists they wear. Think about these sycophants when you watch this from Jared Kushner.
What you've seen today is just a small sample of the work that's been done. And I really want to thank the entire team that's worked so hard at this. A lot of these people are volunteers. They're doing this not for any personal gain. People are not personally profiting from this. They are really doing this for their children and for their grandchildren, and because they want to see peace.
Or this from Steve Witkoff.
What do you say to them about why this is so critical for the U.S. to be doing what it is doing in Iran right now? How do you persuade them?
I say to them, Sarah, that if they have children, think about what this world would look like if you didn't have Donald Trump as the president. Because in a year, if you had someone who didn't have the courage to do this action, you'd have 30 or 40 nuclear bombs. And what would the world look like there? So thank God we have a president and leadership at the helm that makes these courageous decisions.
We live in a time where trust is the rarest of commodities. We live in an age where your ordinary American, average people, good people, do not believe a word. They don't trust the news media, and for good reason. They don't trust its corporate ownership, and for good reason. They don't trust the tech companies. They don't trust the big banks. They don't trust the artificial intelligence industry that's preying on them already. They don't trust the social media companies. They don't trust Trump. They don't trust his cabinet, and they don't trust the Congress. But there are men and women in the Congress who can be trusted. And one of them is the outstanding U.S. Senator from Connecticut, Chris Murphy. This is what he said after leaving a classified briefing about Donald Trump's war.
I just came from a 2-hour closed-door classified briefing on the war. It just confirmed to me it's totally incoherent. We are not going to be able to achieve any of our stated objectives. But I mention it because it's another closed-door briefing. We have still not yet heard a full explanation as to why this is necessary. We still have had no hearings in front of Congress that the public can see, and I think that's pretty simple. Because if the president did what the Constitution says, come to Congress to get authorization for this war, he wouldn't get it. The American people would demand that their member of Congress, their senator, whether they be a Republican or Democrat, vote no, because this is a disaster of epic proportions. It's already getting Americans killed. It's driving up prices here at home. Harder line leadership, more antithetical to U.S. interests, are strengthening inside Iran. And there's really no way that we're going to be able to destroy their nuclear program because most of it is buried underground unless we mount a ground invasion, which would be even more disastrous and more unpopular. This has just been a debacle, a 10-day debacle. And we're going to use whatever leverage we have in the Senate to try to prompt those hearings, to try to prompt that vote, and to get this administration to start paying attention to the Constitution.
I trust Chris Murphy, and so should you. Listen to these men talk about their loyalty to Trump.
We are bringing America back again, and it's largely because of the leadership of the gentleman that I'll introduce to you in a moment. He is the most active president, the most energized president, the most successful president, I believe, in my lifetime, and he's proven it over and over and over, and part of it is because he doesn't sleep, thankfully. He's got so much to do. And I know that because I get calls from him at 2 a.m. and 7 a.m., sometimes in the same day. He doesn't require a lot of sleep, thankfully, and he is the man for the moment. His achievements are incalculable. History will record that this president came at exactly the right time, on the eve of the 250th anniversary of the greatest nation in the history of the world, the most free, most successful, most powerful, most benevolent nation that has ever been. And we understand, and he understands, that it's not guaranteed. He understands that we have to fight for it every single day.
They are on their knees. And Donald Trump has started a war that involves 20 different nations and has choked off the delivery of the world's oil supply, which will spike prices upwards of $150 a gallon. It is an economic disaster. It is a jobs disaster. It is an inflation disaster. It is a Donald Trump disaster. The bill is coming due for every American that was foolish enough to put their trust in Donald Trump. But there are no permanent victories in American politics, and the American people have a right, a duty, and a responsibility to vote these people out of office. They must be defeated, including Lindsey Graham. I honestly don't know what is wrong with him. Who could? But he is bloodthirsty. He is lonely. And he seems energized, fetishizing death and destruction. 168 children likely killed by an American Tomahawk missile that missed its target. The Secretary of Defense has a zeal for war. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is unimpressive, to say the least. The United States Congress, through leaders like Chris Murphy, must take the American people's opposition to this insanity to the floor of the Congress and debate it. And it must be opposed. It must be opposed because it is not in America's national security interest to lose more men and women, to deepen the hole in which we find ourselves, having been put there, placed there by Donald Trump, who dug it. If we are to lose this war, it is better to withdraw now, and we are going to lose this war because we cannot achieve the objective that Donald Trump stated, which is to topple the regime, and is now changed. That's gone. Each day there are new reasons for the war, each contradicting the last. The bluster never stops, but the rationale changes like the weather. Here's the deal. Chris Murphy can be trusted to tell you the truth. And what he's trying to say is there is no plan for what comes next. This is incoherent. It is incompetent. It is improvisational, and it is deadly serious, and it is expanded to 20 nations, and it has every potential to wreck the American economy. This is what MAGA has done. They lied when they said they wanted peace, and here we are. It is April the 14th, 2026. 114 years ago tonight, the Titanic hit the iceberg. just like Donald Trump and MAGA, have hit a different iceberg. Let's call it the Pope Leo iceberg. I'm Steve Schmidt. Donald Trump is many things. He is a liar. He is an abuser of women, a degenerate, a man mentioned in the Epstein Files 1,000,000 times. But he's also something else. And he's proved that time and time again over the last 11 years. Donald Trump may be the luckiest man on earth. He's been lucky in his opponents. He's been lucky over and over again. Here's Chuck Schumer shortly after Donald Trump took office. Do you remember the "We Are Winning" chants?
And we will win! 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 We will win!
Over and over again, Donald Trump has rolled over his opponents. Little Marco, Ted Cruz, Jeb Bush, Secretary Clinton, Joe Biden. He brutalized them. He has dominated the American political scene for 11 long years. It's important for you to understand that every single Republican you see slobbering over Donald Trump, all of them, without exception, opposed him. J.D. Vance is one of the most famous examples, comparing him to Hitler.
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. It makes you think that at a fundamental level, this is sort of a he said, she said, right? And at the end of the day, do you believe Donald Trump, who always tells the truth? Just kidding. Or do you believe that woman on that tape?
I cannot stand Trump because I think he's a fraud. Well, I think he's a total fraud that is exploiting these people, who is a total fraud.
Like you said, I agree with you on Trump because I don't think that he's the person. I don't think he actually cares about folks.
Definitely, there is definitely an element of Donald Trump's support that has its basis in racism or xenophobia.
There was Lindsey Graham saying this in 2015.
What is your reaction to hearing what Donald Trump says?
Disgusted. Well, I want to talk to the Trump supporters for a minute. I don't know who you are, and I don't know why you like this guy. I think what you like about him, he appears to be strong when the rest of us are weak. He's a very successful businessman, and he's going to make everything great. He's going to take all the problems of the world and put them in a box and make your life better. That's what he's selling. Here's what you're buying. He's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot.
Over these years, a way of thinking about Trump has taken hold. It's an old idea. It's called appeasement. And we've seen people line up to get on their knees, to say whatever must be said, in whatever moment it must be said, to navigate Trump's volcanic ego, his brittle temperament. The examples are miles long. The Prime Minister of Italy has long been described in Europe as the Trump whisperer. He clearly has had some affection for her, but that relationship now is breached. The Italian Prime Minister, after all, can't take the side of the blasphemous American president against the Pope. She did it. She said that Donald Trump owes an apology to Pope Leo for this insanity. The whole world, not just the American people, saw this AI-generated madness. Trump, responding to it, claimed he was but a simple country doctor.
Did you post that picture of yourself depicted as Jesus Christ?
Well, it wasn't depicted. It was me. I did post it, and I thought it was me as a doctor, and had to do with Red Cross as a Red Cross worker there, which we support. And only the fake news could come up with that one. So I just heard about it, and I said, how did they come up with that? It's supposed to be me as a doctor making people better, and I do make people better. I make people a lot better.
Yes, that's what he was doing. But from the Prime Minister's office in Italy to Peoria in Illinois, everybody knows exactly what it was and who Donald Trump was claiming to be. Now, Donald Trump has attacked the Italian Prime Minister, saying she doesn't understand that if Iran has nuclear weapons, they could blow up Italy in 2 minutes. That's what Trump said. But Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. Donald Trump has said many times that he obliterated the Iranian nuclear program. And he said as many times after saying it was obliterated that he's re-obliterated it. Donald Trump has started a war, and there are some estimates now that that war will exceed $1 trillion in cost. It is in its 46th day today. Yesterday, Donald Trump announced a full naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, which the Iranians are also blockading. Trump is blockading the Iranian blockade. Yet, 4 sanctioned vessels in the first day of the Trump blockade sailed right through it. They were not interdicted. They were not stopped. Do you know what that means? It means there is no blockade. It means that Donald Trump's blockade is a fantasy. In this moment, in the United States, what is it that we're seeing? We should be clear about this. The president isn't just unhinged. It's as if he is mid-psychotic breakdown. He is incoherent. He is frazzled. He is in physical decline. And his mental illness is announcing itself more loudly every day. His coalition is splitting. There's a civil war inside of MAGA, while America's fighting a real war against Iran. These are dangerous days, but know this, the curtain, it's dropping. These were the scenes in Hungary. Imagine the scenes in the United States. This November, when the MAGA Congress is repudiated and swept from office, and 2 years after that, when the MAGA era is brought to a close, when the reckoning comes, delivered by the American people. And man, oh man, will it be brutal. And have no doubt, it is coming faster every day. Why? Because in the end, Donald Trump is more than just a degenerate. He's nuts. And our rotten country, we made him our commander-in-chief. And now we pay the price. And we pray that things do not get so bad that we lose everything. This is The Warning. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning. I invite you to join this community where I promise to be honest, blunt, and direct about what is happening in this country. America is in crisis. Follow and subscribe to this channel and on Substack. Become a member today and gain special access, including badges, ad-free content, and more. Thank you for your support.